There is no tomorrow. There is no tomorrow. There is no tomorrow.
Happy Friday, everybody. May 10th, Friday night. Look at this. 5 people in the house. So I'm feeling good. We got a big, well, is it a big day of boxing tomorrow? Lomachenko and Kambosos. They fight tomorrow. And then the week after, we got the heavyweight unification fight. But May, I want to talk about the month of May. A lot of historic fights in the month of May that we'll get to very soon. But tomorrow night on ESPN Plus, my man Tim Bradley, he's calling the fight, and I am with most people. Most people believe that Vasily Lomachenko is going to become lightweight champion again. He's a huge favorite. He's a minus 800 favorite over Kambosos. Kambosos is at plus 500. So I listened to a lot of shows. Listened to a lot of boxing during the week, and there's been a lot going on. And a lot of people cover things a lot more eloquently, like, the drug thing with Garcia and everything. Want to shout out a few people. Tech Dumb Dad, and the immortal words of the famous, much Miss Mills Lane, let's get it on. Little Holmes, let's rock. Yes, indeed. So, there's been a lot going on, and I like to try to focus on the boxing and the history, which we don't hear enough about, I don't think. But I really want to know, I was listening to the Boxing Voice, and someone jumped on there, I think it was the Boxing Voice, and said that they thought Kambosos was going to stop Lomachenko. And I'm just curious if people think that Kambosos has a shot. Because I'm looking at his record, and he had that great night against Teofimo Lopez, which still I don't understand why Teofimo Lopez fought the way he did. I know he had medical issues. But since then, he got schooled by Devin Haney. And look, I thought he lost to Maxie Hughes. Maxie Hughes got the decision over Maxie Hughes. And for that, he gets a shot at the vacant IBF belt. Lomachenko, it'll be a year, I think May 20th, since he fought Haney. He's 36 years old. And, looking at Lomachenko's record, Jermaine Ortiz, a lot of people looked at that as a sign that Lomachenko was slowing down. No, Jermaine Ortiz is just that good. He's just that good. Tech Dumb Dad, when you live through what is now history, it makes it even better. Damn, man, but that makes me sound like I'm old. Look, I'm happy to be getting older because it beats the alternative. He did lose to Maxie. I was there in Tulsa. Yeah, I was not there, but I thought he lost that fight. But he's a huge favorite. And I'm just curious, Glenn R., if you come into George, that suits him. If George has to push the fight, you know what, Glenn, for a second I was like thinking you were talking about me. You're right. You're right. He does struggle. He does struggle with that. Jay Rich, not excited for this fight whatsoever, but of course we'll be watching. Yeah. Look, we're going to be watching because we're boxing fans. So it's not a big fight, but it's a title fight, and it's Lomachenko, and it's a chance for him to become champion again, which I think he will. All right, Tech. So you make me feel like I'm not so old. I lived through it too. We are not old. We are seasoned. You know what? It's good to have some experience. It's good to have some experience. My man Bruce Gass is in the house. So yeah, we got these two guys facing off tomorrow at 10 o'clock on ESPN Plus, and the weigh-in is actually
Lomachenko and
tonight.
Kambosos.
The weigh-in is tonight, I believe at 8:30. So there's never been any issues with either guy making weight. So I don't think that's going to be a problem at all. And look, there you have it. We got these guys. They had a little face-off at the press conference, which is typical. So I'm looking forward to the fight. There's really no juice to it. Marvino LA, make sure you subscribe, hit the like button. It helps with the visibility of the show, as Nestor Gibbs puts it so eloquently. Marvino Allen, Haney took a beating no matter what happens in the drug case. That will be in his head for life. This is stuff I haven't really talked about. I think May 22nd is when the B sample comes back. I think we're all pretty sure the B sample will come back positive and we can address it then. Haney did take a beating. He did, but all fighters, maybe all athletes. I mean, I was in a different sport, but there's always a reason why you lost. You didn't train hard enough, or you had an injury, or something happened. You have to have a reason to lose. It's very hard to say, I gave my best and I got beat. So Devin Haney, at least psychologically, he did take a physical beating. But if the reason why he was beat was because he lost to a guy who was juicing, we'll see. But you're right. In boxing, you take an actual physical beating, which, look, it wasn't. I wasn't the one getting hit, so I can't really make a light of it. Glenn Loma will geek the fight to George, so it'll be closer than you think, but Loma will win. I don't know, Glenn. I don't. He'll take the fight. I don't know. I don't think it's going to be close, but I always tell people I don't call fights. Authentico boxing, Loma has all the tools, but he has to let the hands go from the get-go. My man, yeah, he does. Jay, I haven't even checked the undercard, to be honest. I'm not super excited about this fight. Haven't checked the undercard. But look, a week later, we got the heavyweight fight, the fight for undisputed. Hopefully it happens. And then June 1st, which was supposed to be the battle for everything at 175, that's off. So you got the Queensberry Matchroom 5-on-5. So there's some, and Subriel Matias is coming up in a little over a month. Same day as Tank. I don't know, man. I think I'm a bit old school because I really don't like when they have dueling cards at the same time. But whatever. I guess I'm in the minority on that. So does anyone out there think that Lomachenko can win this fight? I'm sorry, Kambosos. Does anyone think Kambosos can win? Tech Dumb Dad, I am hyped to see how Loma looks so I can see how he might fare in another title fight. Well, this is for a title. This is for a vacant belt. It's for the vacant IBF championship of the world. So Lomachenko or Kambosos with a win, he gets it. On ESPN, Tim Bradley wrote an article on how Kambosos can win the fight. I don't know. Hey, I want to give a shout out to Iran Barkley, the former fighter, champion at 160, champion at 168. I think he was a 3-division champion. I know that Iran Barkley is the only fighter to beat Tommy Hearns twice, and the only fighter to beat Tommy Hearns by decision. So Iran Barkley, when Roy Jones fought at Radio City Music Hall, it was the first fight ever at Radio City Music Hall, and there was an after party. I forget where the after party was, but I was with HBO. There was an after party, and there were celebrities there, a lot of actors, actresses, singers. And know what's funny? That after party, Salt and Pepper. Now this is like 20 years ago. Salt and Pepper were there. I think it was Pepper was out there dancing with someone. So I started dancing like 3 feet away from her and said I danced with Pepper. I didn't dance with Pepper. But that night, for me, the biggest, the highlight of that after party was when Iran Barkley walked into me. I was like, oh man, there's the Blade. So, yeah, that's right. Push it good. So shout out to Iran Barkley. He's still alive. He's still kicking. He's still doing his thing. So May, there's a lot of great history in May, and I just like to kind of wing this stuff. But this was a fight I was at May 12, 2001, and this is crazy because this is 13 years ago. I'm sorry, 23 years ago. May 12, 2001, Tito Trinidad and William Joppy fought for a middleweight championship. It was at Madison Square Garden. I was working for HBO. I was at the fight.
He loves the knockout, he says.
What a night it was.
Joppy just believes that he can do it. Take it and come back. Joppy trading shots toe-to-toe with Trinidad. This is the way they used to do it. Fight wasn't over until it was over. Joffrey went down to the body.
Tito was something.
That'll do it. I don't think Berkanti's going to let William Joffrey continue. They look good about it. With a sensational knockout. Sensational performance by the greatest finisher in the sport.
Greatest finisher until he met up with Bernard Hopkins. But that was 23 years ago, and I was at that fight. HBO used to hook us up with good tickets. It wasn't ringside, but it wasn't too far from ringside. Yeah, Tito was a beast. Adam Hurley, what's going on, my man? So I was at that fight, and that experience being at a Tito Trinidad fight, who's Puerto Rican, at the Garden 23 years ago in May, around, not far from Cinco de Mayo. I'm thinking the Puerto Rican Day Parade, but the atmosphere inside the Garden was insane, and it was like the garden of love for Tito Trinidad. They loved him, and I remember when that fight ended, Trinidad stayed in the ring for maybe 15, 20 minutes after the telecast had ended, just saluting the crowd, just blowing kisses to the crowd, and just he was adored in that ring. And it was to experience that was something. I used to root against Tito a lot. I don't know why, although I did want him to beat Oscar. So I did want him to beat Oscar. But I remember there was like one guy in that crowd that was openly rooting for Joppy, and he got shouted down every time he did it in a good way. Yeah, Tito was he was and I've been to Miguel Cotto fights in the Garden too, and they love Cotto too. But with Tito, it was different because Tito showed his love for people. Cotto was more reserved, but Tito Trinidad he showed his love, and he just chopped Joppy down. And people thought he was going to do it 160, but he did 154. And then everyone knows what happened a few months later when he fought Bernard Hopkins. But Tito Trinidad, 23 years ago against Joppy, which is it's crazy. Also May 7th, which is another crazy date. May 7th, 2005 was Corrales Castillo won. And it's still, I should have a poll up, but name me a better fight. And it's not an argument, it's not a debate, but name some better fights than Corrales Castillo won. I don't know. You can say some are on par, but I don't know if there's a better fight full of more drama than Corrales and Castillo. That 10th round, Corrales getting dropped twice, looks like the fight is over. Spit his mouthpiece out a few times, and he comes back to beat Castillo. It was amazing. But there was also, so I dug in May 11th, 1977. So tomorrow will be 47 years. That's a long time. Going back to heavyweight history, Muhammad Ali was still heavyweight champion of the world. Dwayne Bobbick was 38-0. He was one of those, which I hate the term, he was one of those great white hopes, which they felt like they needed because promoters knew it would make them money. He faced off against Kenny Norton. And the winner of this fight, Kenny Norton, who had just fought in Ali for the third time like a year before. So Dwayne Bobbick, I don't know, he might have been the number one contender, but the winner of this fight was supposed to get a shot at Muhammad Ali. So Dwayne Bobbick had, I looked up Dwayne Bobbick's record, and he really had fought no one of note up to this point, but he did beat Mike Weaver, the future heavyweight champion. He beat Mike Weaver in 1974, and Weaver was one of those fighters that got better as he got older. Bobbick also beat Chuck Wepner, the Bayonne Bleeder. He stopped him at the end of Wepner's career. But this is Madison Square Garden. Now, there's a lot on the line. And Dwayne Bobbick was, by the way, trained by the great Eddie Futch. Dwayne Bobbick's manager was Joe Frazier. So they all saw dollar signs. They all saw dollar signs. So this didn't last long.
We're going to first to 12.
This is the first round.
Wayne Bobbitt in the
Madison
white
Square
tan
Garden.
trunks and Ken Norton in the velvet blue.
Bobbitt has a quick right hand. That's his best punch.
Norton's best punch is the right uppercut, but that's tough to deliver. He does not have the good straight right hand. His camp wished he would deliver it more. He does in his sparring, but he can't in his fight. There's that overhand right, and that hurt Bobbitt. Bobbitt is hurt from that overhand right, and now will have to hang on to survive. Norton on the attack. Bobbitt was stunned by that looping overhand right, and Bobbitt is defensive.
Oh.
It's a long 2 minutes to go in round one for Dwayne Bobbitt, and down he goes.
Man, poor Dwayne Bobbitt had no defense.
I don't believe he's going to make it.
Now, what's funny is the referee counts to 10, but then he's going to let the fight go on
He barely made it at the count of 10. Bobbitt is
until he saw that Bobbitt couldn't walk.
out on his feet. No, that's going to be it. The fight is stopped right there. Ken Norton had just won by a sensational first-round knockout.
So that was 47 years ago, and Kenny Norton never got another shot at Ali. He did become heavyweight champion.
Ken
He
Norton,
was given the title,
who came out with a
which was
right hand,
vacant,
caught
and then he
Norton,
lost to
caught
the Larry
Dwayne Bobbitt
Holmes
with that
in his first defense. So that's 47 years ago. Dwayne Bobbitt. Yeah, Bobbitt got punched everywhere. I mean, Bobbitt had those overhand rights couldn't be more overhand by Kenny Norton. That's one of the craziest overhand rights, and he kept landing it over and over and over. Dwayne Bobbitt ended up at 48-4. Never fought for a title. Dwayne Bobbitt is still alive, so shout out to Dwayne Bobbitt. I've heard that he's not doing well, but how good was Bobby's hair? Bobbitt's hair, yeah. So going back to a better fight than Corrales Castillo, Chavez Taylor, most dramatic, yes, but I'm talking about a better fight from bell to bell or bell to knockout, whenever. I don't know. I don't think there's many fights that are better than that. And Bruce Gass, see, there's a lot that I miss for sure. 23-year-old James Toney defeats 28-year-old Michael Nunn. Wow, was that today? I remember that bomb that he landed, and Michael Nunn was winning that fight. Funny, I didn't have this plan, but I have an old edition of Ring Magazine right here. James Toney was Ring's Fighter of the Year in 1992. So Bobby couldn't walk, indeed. Yeah. Bobbitt had a rough night. Glenn R. McCallum Toney 1-2. For what? Better than Corrales Castillo? I don't know. I don't know what that means. But let me get the link in here. See if anybody wants to talk boxing. Adam Hurley. Toney and Nunn are both legends in my eyes, indeed. And James Toney, I was lucky enough to interview him before. Great fighter. Pryor versus Arguello. Okay. First one. Yeah. That's up there. And again, I'm not saying Corrales Castillo is the best fight of all time. I'm just saying name some fights on that level. Because there are fights on that level, but I didn't see that fight live, Corrales Castillo. But I remember a buddy of mine was texting me about how great that I was with HBO at the time. I think we may have had a fight the same weekend that they did. I'm not sure. The same weekend as Corrales Castillo. But I didn't watch the fight. A buddy of mine was texting me saying, you got to see this fight. And then when I saw it, I think I couldn't move for I mean, it was just nonstop. And then the drama, it was an incredible night, and rest in peace to Diego Corrales. For me, the skill level is crazy. Yeah. It's And that's the thing. The skill level, it was just a ferocious fight. But Pryor Arguello, definitely the first fight is on there. But there's a lot of history in May. There's a lot of history in this month. So, but that Dwayne Bobbitt fight, I think people really made fun of Bobbitt. But look, man, the guy was he was 38-0. He hadn't faced anyone, and I think their thoughts were Kenny Norton was on the downslide, and he wasn't. But those right hands, good God, man! I mean, Kenny Norton was like swinging and just landed every single one he threw. So anybody that wants to talk any boxing, you got the link. The link is in there. Jump in. We can talk about Lomachenko. Johnny, Goosenheld was delaying the mouthpiece. Corrales spitting out the mouthpiece was sketchy. It wasn't sketchy. He spit it out because he was hurt, and I think he might have gotten a point taken off, but desperate times call for desperate measures, right? And he was desperate. I think if he did it one more time, he probably would have got DQ'd. So if you, I know what the rule book says, but if you can get away with things, if the ref isn't going to do anything, you just keep doing it. And it was a great fight, and it's too bad that the rematch wasn't the same. If you don't know, Castillo came in overweight, and it was kind of a farce. Remind you of anything coming in overweight? But really, all this week was most of the talk was Canelo, and most of the talk was Ryan Garcia. And I get why, because if I was doing a show every single day, you have to talk about these things. But I don't have to talk about them because I really don't have much to say about Garcia, except he did flunk his first, and if he flunks his second, let's see what boxing does. My sense is that they'll do nothing. So I don't want to talk Garcia and Spence. I don't want to talk Garcia and anyone until we get the second drug test back, because right now he's guilty until proven innocent. Right now he already failed a test. So he's not innocent till proven guilty. He's guilty till proven innocent. His B test can prove him innocent, or that can just validate the fact that he's guilty. So he's guilty. So I'm not talking about him fighting anyone. But what boxing will do, if he fails, he'll get the 6-month suspension, or maybe if it's a year. So what? He comes back up. He keeps doing stuff on social media. He gets bigger. So that's why I really didn't want to talk about that. Marvino Allen, the fighters from the 70s and 80s were different. There's great fighters today, but yes. Castillo did it twice, coming overweight, and they scrapped the third fight. Yeah, Johnny, I remember. I remember. Hardy versus Andre's great fight. Yes, that was a great comeback. That was a great comeback. But yeah, all the talk was Garcia and the test and Canelo. And whether, I mean, a lot of talk on Canelo. And I saw what Edgar Berlanga did. You know, he's trying to get a fight. I don't blame him for trying to get a fight. I really don't. But I'm just a fan who doesn't want to see Canelo fight Berlanga. I don't want to. I want to see him fight Benavidez, but it sounds like that's never going to happen. So, might be working on a project. There was a project called Legendary Nights a long time ago. HBO Sports, they picked the 10 best fights ever, and we did 30-minute documentaries on each one. And it's in talks that there's a company who has rights to some HBO fights, and they may want to do the same thing. They will be lesser. They won't be on par with like Oscar and Floyd, but there'll be some, as far as names, but there'll be some great fights. So hopefully that's going to happen. I'll know soon. Glenn that fight ain't happening. Yeah, Glenn, I know. That's why there's really not, a lot of other people have talked about it so much. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Jay Rich, if we haven't established, I'm a big hater, and as a Ryan Garcia hater, I'm hoping he gets suspended a year. No, I don't think it's hate. maybe it is. We'll see. I don't know how. I don't know what the rules are. They make up the rules. It's boxing. I mean, look at Jake Paul and Tyson. They make up the rules. That's a pro fight now with 63-ounce gloves in 60-second rounds. I'm kidding with that, but that's kind of a joke. Johnny, were you involved with the Legendary Nights series? What a show. I still watch them. Actually, I was a production assistant. I worked on every single one of those. I helped come up with the idea for those shows. But at the time, they couldn't give the credit to that show to a PA because I was ranked, I was a lowly PA at HBO. So everybody that I worked with there at HBO, they knew that I basically came up with the idea to do the shows, but I was never given the proper credit. But we did win a sports Emmy, and we worked on those shows for a year. And HBO had a staff back then. It wasn't all freelancers. We had a staff, but it was two of us from the staff. We were put in another building with a bunch of freelancers. That's how big the operation was. And it was about a good year that we worked on Legendary Nights. And it paid off. We won a sports Emmy that year. And we had teams. Each team worked on 2 shows. And I had a hand in all of them. But the 2 I worked on were Tyson, Buster Douglas, and Tyson versus Lennox Lewis. And what really sucked about that, we were supposed to do Tyson Douglas and Tyson Spinks because Michael Spinks was his biggest win. Mike Tyson was the reason why people bought HBO back then. Before Oscar De La Hoya, people bought HBO because of Mike Tyson, and that was his zenith. That was his night. That was when he was never better, when he fought Michael Spinks. And we had already shot a lot of the footage. And then Lennox Lewis and Tyson fought. And at the time, Lennox Lewis was heavyweight champion, and he was with HBO. So we did a Legendary Nights on a fight that had just happened. We did a Legendary Nights on Tyson and Lennox Lewis. It came out fine, but it sucked that we scrapped Tyson Spinks. To me, that was a story. So we showed 2 Tyson fights where he got his ass just beat all over the ring, instead of showing the one that really made him made HBO. I mean, he was a big part in HBO's success. I don't think he gets enough credit for the success he had helping to make HBO what it was, and now it's gone. Putting in the work, so cool. Yeah, Legendary Nights was a lot of fun. It was probably the most fun I had, the most fun project I ever had working on. I remember hearing the Tyson Spinks fight on the radio. Didn't last long from what I remembered. 90 seconds, 91 seconds. Yeah. And I believe we had already shot an interview with Michael Spinks. And it's just too bad because it should have been done, and nothing has been properly done on that fight. And I hope something does happen, because it was a moment where there were the 2 top heavyweights in the world, and Michael Spinks was the linear heavyweight champion. He beat Larry Holmes, and he gave up his title. Tyson had all the belts. Everybody wanted to see it. And at that time, Mike Tyson, you can't even describe. It's hard to describe his popularity. I mean, he was making Diet Pepsi commercials. He had a video game on Nintendo. My whole family was watching. It was awesome and disappointing at the same time. Well, I wanted Tyson. I was a big Tyson fan. So I wanted Tyson to win that fight. And that fight was during the week. It was like a Monday or a Tuesday, because it was in the summer. I remember that. I didn't see it live, though. Johnny, were you at the Hamed Kelly bout? Great fight and ring entrance. I wasn't there. I was working for HBO, but I wasn't there. That's a great... Why wasn't I there? Because I was living in Jersey. Why didn't I just go to that fight? Because I remember the billboards of Hamed, because HBO was on 42nd and 6th. And I would take the train from Jersey to Penn Station every day. And I think right outside of Penn Station, there was a giant mural of Hamed. So Yeah, that's a, you know what? I don't, the question should have been, why weren't you at the Hamed Kelly bout? And I was rooting for Kevin Kelly so bad in that fight. Banana Bread, what's up, Banana Bread? Were you surprised when HBO boxing decided to shut down, or did you develop an intuition that it was bound to happen? Still sad about HBO and Showtime. It is sad. It's very sad. Um, so I was with HBO for 15 years, from 99 to 2014, and they let me go when they started to cut back budgets, and they were merging with another company. So they had the first layoff they ever had, and I was one of the people that was let go. No, it was not a shock that HBO boxing just up and left 4 years later, because every year I didn't have anything to do with the financials or the business side, but I do know every year our budget to do features and shows shrank. Every year it got smaller and smaller. I left there in 2014, and you could just tell the cards that they had. They started to turn their back. They turned their back on Bob Arum and Al Heyman. Started turning their back on promoters. So I'll never know, but my guess is the people up top didn't love boxing. It wasn't like it was when Ross Greenberg was there. So there was no support. They knew. I really do think it was like a long-term play. I think it was like a 4-year play, and they just like weaned their way off it. And then it was really dirty, man. It was really the way it happened, because I still had friends there. One day, the head of boxing, or the head of the department, said, we're having a meeting. There was a theater. I forget which floor it was on, the 14th maybe. Our floor was the 11th floor of the HBO building, and they called a meeting for the entire staff, and they announced. They said, we will not be doing boxing. We'll be doing it just for this year. We won't be doing it beyond this year. And then they told everyone, listen, some of you are going to lose your jobs. Please go back to your office. An HR representative is going to come talk to you guys individually, one by one, to let you know whether or not you still have a job. So most of these people are my friends. Everybody sat in their offices. It was like they were waiting for the Grim Reaper to come, and they came one by one. The head of the you had a manager you reported to, and an HR person, and they went office by office and told you either your job is safe or you were let go. So that's what happened, and a lot of people lost their jobs. But no, it was I was not surprised. In fact, Boxing Bully in the house. What's up, Boxing Bully? Funny, I was working with you at DAZN when HBO had their very last telecast, and I remember watching the close of that show, and it's very sad, but it wasn't surprising. It was not surprising that they did it. It was a business decision, and when it comes to business corporations, you are a number, and they're I used to think HBO was like a family, and the people I worked with, they were family, but the corporate side, you're not family. You're not family. So yes, sir, sad moment for boxing. It was definitely a sad moment for boxing, but listen, for those of you that don't know, the Boxing Bully, he's on DAZN, Akin Barak. I love what you guys do. It's a new day, and if you're a boxing fan, you've adapted. It's a new day. Everything is streaming now. It's a new day. Now, Johnny, I agree with you here. Nothing compares to HBO production, 24/7 series and Face Off. Now it's cheap copies of those shows. Now, Barack, if you're still there, that's something I will say. DAZN's got to up they got to up their production value. Man, I was watching a fight, and Barack, you guys do all these different shows, boxing shows. So I'm watching Al Bernstein like a month ago when he made his comeback. He was calling a fight in Bulgaria, I think. I could barely hear him, and whoever he was calling the fight with, I couldn't hear. So yeah, nothing compares to HBO production. Look, I don't want to knock everyone, but what I do see in production, not everywhere, but what I do see on a lot of these shows is I don't know who. What I see is a lack of dedication, and I think people just want to get the shows up, not worrying about how clean the shows are, how they sound. I mean, look, and DAZN is not the only one. They show when I buy pay-per-view, I don't want to see commercials especially during the main event in between rounds. I don't want to see commercials. I want to hear the corners. That's what I want. I want to hear the corners. And now you pay per pay-per-view and the showing commercials. So yeah, it's kind of sad. It's kind of sad. It's definitely it's a different day, and it sounds like I gotta catch up. All right, Tech, you jump in anytime, bro. Jay Rich, hit the like and subscribe. I appreciate you, Jay. I appreciate you, brother. Go on Facebook to Champ Ross Fantasy Boxing Predictions League. If you're looking for fantasy boxing, it's right there. It's right there. And Champ, why don't you get your get the info in there too? Boxing Bully, I agree. I saw Al that night as well. I felt bad for him. HBO's the benchmark. Everyone is trying to match. But you know what? Bully, Brock, I don't know. I don't know if they're trying to match it. I guess that's my point. I guess that's my point. I think that a lot of times they don't have the right people in the right positions on these telecasts. Maybe they might not have the right people running it. And it's just a simple thing like being able to hear the punches during a fight. I was watching a fight today. It was an older fight. What fight was it? It was Kelly Pavlik and Jermaine Taylor won, which was, man, I don't know, 2009, 10, something, 11. And I watched on YouTube and I could hear the punches. The audio was so good during the fight. In the corner, the sound was so good. Nowadays, I don't even know if they ask to mic the trainers anymore. You don't hear that. You don't hear that. And when HBO started, what was brand new was you could listen to that in between rounds. And now people just don't care. Now people don't care. So it kills the suspense. You know what? I got completely lost. But Annabird, man, so sad to hear, but at least glad that you're streaming and keeping boxing alive. Well, I'm certainly not keeping boxing alive. But I do love the sport. And Barack, I do miss all the conversations that we used to have. I love what DAZN is doing, but I think they need that real boxing voice to call the blow by blow. Any voices you like? Look, Jim Lampley is still out there, and I don't want to criticize DAZN's. They've got some good people calling the fights. They really do. But Jim Lampley is out there. Al Bernstein, I think, should automatically be the lead. He should automatically be in the lead. Well, that's my point. With this whole production thing, I'm talking about people behind the camera. It's the people and the people that hire those people. I think that's where it's just lacking. It's just lacking, man. And I put this up before, but Bully, you agree that you saw Al that night and felt bad for him, so you know what I'm talking about. That audio was so bad. I don't think it's just attention to detail. That's all it is. I was thinking Jim Lampley. I know he's older, but when you hear his voice, you know boxing's on. I think Gus Johnson is excellent also when he was on. Yeah, Gus I feel like Gus didn't have a long run, but I like Gus too. I like Gus. I mean, I still miss Roy Jones, and Andre Ward should be calling fights too, but Roy Jones should be doing it every week. The on-camera talent is there for the most part, and stop those ads when I want to hear the corner. That's a big thing to me. That's a big thing. I want to hear the corners. And now, so it's all this, and it's okay to entertain the crowd that's there. But who's the idiot that said, let's blast music in between rounds at the highest decibel levels you could find so we can entertain the crowd for the minute in between? Who's the idiot that did that? Because they blast that so loud, you can't, as bad as the audio is in the corners, you can't hear the trainers anymore. So, little things like that have happened. I'll just sign with Salida Promotions, so he will be calling fights on DAZN. Yes, I did see that, Barack, and I'm happy about that because it's it's deserved. And yes, Brock, it was so bad I couldn't watch. Well, first of all, the fights were just man, they weren't exciting. And shout out to Boxing Bully Barack, who was on DAZN. He's doing his thing. I love hearing you talk about the sport, but yeah, but I'm not. This is not an assault on the on-camera people. It's the production people, and really, everyone wants to do everything on the cheap. They don't want to spend money. I get it. Budgets are going down, but it doesn't mean quality has to go down. I'm telling you. And I'm starting to sound like an old man, but at HBO, they were meticulous with everything. Cameras, the camera angles, the audio. I mean, we did full fact checks multiple times, rehearsals. Everything was on point. Everything was on point. I don't see it. I don't see it now. Jex, Double D, 1617. Netflix can also splash into the sport. They also have a big enough bankroll to make big fights. All free with subscription would be very nice. Maybe not Saudi type money. Well, that's what they're trying to do with Tyson and Jake Paul. Oh, by the way, Monday at the Apollo Theater in Harlem, I will be at the press conference. I got my media credential. So Monday, there's their first presser. I think they do one later in the week in LA. I'm very curious to see what this is going to be like. But Netflix is winning. Netflix is winning because people are talking about this fight. And only in this sport that I love can they F it up, because they're calling it a real fight. But at 2 minutes with 14-ounce gloves, I think. It's the only sport you can make up your own rules. You can't do that in baseball. You can't, or basketball. They don't say, all right, well, we got some older guys playing, so it's going to be 4 3-minute quarters. It's only in baseball. I'm sorry, it's only in boxing. Banana Bread, I wonder if they don't want to hire the best announcers like Jim Lampley because they just want to hire the cheapest and maximize profits. That's a question. That's a question for them. Bernstein is one of those guys who I thought voice was kind of annoying, but now that he's not calling fights, I miss him. Yeah, I always liked that. In fact, man, going back, go back to Hagler Hearns. Go on YouTube and check out Hagler Hearns. Hagler Hearns, of course, was HBO, but it wasn't a pay-per-view. It was a closed circuit. That's what they had back then. Al Michaels and Al Bernstein called that fight. And man, like I'm an HBO guy. Like I'm an HBO guy, but Al Michaels and Al Bernstein were awesome calling Hagler Hearns. So check that out. Check that out on YouTube. Bring back Barry Tompkins. You know, Barry Tompkins, who was the voice of my childhood on HBO. Barry Tompkins was calling fights on Showtime for the longest time. I don't think Barry Tompkins is calling fights anymore. Loud sound beer sales. Yeah, I don't know, man. Do you have to play the music that loud? Do these people in the crowd, aren't they entertained enough by the fights? Catch their breath for a minute, just like the fighters. Go get up, get some beer, do whatever. Do they have to play the music that loud? and you know what? I got a trivia question. Whoever can answer this first gets this 1992 copy of a Ring magazine with James Toney on the cover. Who said it's a good idea to have girls in bikinis standing everywhere in the ring pre and post fight? Where did that start? Who started that? What fight? If you get all that right, then I'll send you this 1992 Ring magazine, May of 1992, with James Toney on the cover. I want to know whose genius idea was it to come up with that, and also the ring announcers. Like, man, just don't scream at me anymore, man. That's all. Bernstein, that's great news. Yeah, I'm very excited for him to be calling fights. The sound crew is lame on the zone, but I still watch. Of course, we still watch. Of course, we still watch. All right, Barack. So I'll see you. I'll see you on Monday. On Monday, make sure you. I'm sure it'll be streaming, but at the Apollo Theater, the first, of course, Barack is going to be there. But the first presser for the Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight on Netflix. Actually, I'm thinking DAZN. Yeah, but it's on Netflix. So I know a friend, a guy who was a producer with me, Gabe Spitzer. We produced Cotto Margarito to the 24/7, which one of the best 24/7s out there. Go check that out. He's a big wig at Netflix, so he helped get me my credential. But he told me about this back when they first announced it. Wouldn't give me any details, but told me it was happening. Skywalker, don't like DAZN. The cost of subscription is $29.99. Half the fights are pay-per-view. Requires 30 days before canceling. They run you for 60 just to try the service. It's bad business. Look, I don't want to put Barack on the spot, but yeah, DAZN was $9.99. Couple things in business, that's what happens when people jump into a business. This is the business people. When they jump into a business, they don't know, and that's what DAZN did. Because they jump in and say $9.99 a month. That's it. No pay-per-views. Pay-per-views are that's the dinosaur way of doing boxing. We're going to do away with pay-per-view. I remember I talked to some clown about getting a job there. I'm talking to this guy on the phone. He's kind of an interview. And he's telling me, like, look, man, I respect that you work for HBO, but we're going to do boxing like you've never seen. We're going to have guys in the crowd and guys here and there. Okay. Before you knew it, that price had jacked up to like $18 a month. They got rid of all those people that they used to have, because there used to be a ton of people in the crowd, people in the locker room, people everywhere. They got rid of all those people. They cut their budgets, and guess what they did? Oh, pay-per-views are back. And as soon as they signed Canelo, I was with DAZN. As soon as they signed him to that $300 million contract, everybody, if you know boxing, you knew two things. One, things were going to change at DAZN at some point with the no pay-per-views. And two, no way Canelo was going to see the end of that contract. And that's what happened. That's awesome. Get that content, brother. Yeah, I'll have a little camera with me. I will shoot some stuff, but I don't know. It's probably going to be a zoo. So I'm really there to just see what the scene is going to be. Co-features the best women's fight to be made. Yeah, I mean, Katie Taylor. I live in Connecticut now. I'm trying to see where she is, because I would love to interview her. That's a big fight, her and Serrano. Big fight. Yeah, my man Barry. Don King, just a guess. I don't know. Oh, that was your guess. I don't know, but was it Don King? Bill Miller? Ring magazine. Yeah, this just happened to be hey Barack, if you know the answer, I'll bring this on Monday and I'll give it to you. But who I can't say invented, but who said, listen, the one thing boxing needs, we need a couple of beautiful women in bikinis. One's going to stand here, one's going to stand here by the ring announcer, and then when we interview the fighters after the fight, they're going to stand behind them and smile. I just want to know who came up with that idea. I don't know. Johnny Hugh Hefner. You know what, Johnny? If you get me your address, I'll send you this Ring magazine. I will send it to you. Well, you're saying, Johnny, Bill Miller came up with the ring card girl. And now they're doing pay-per-views. Yeah. But it's yeah. I'll tell you though, Barack, that the cost is crazy. The cost is crazy. Is it Bill Miller? Man, I can't keep up with this. Ring Magazine started the Ring Girls. Don't know who said make them part of the fight. Ring Magazine started. Did they really? All right. Well, I don't know. But I still have my James Toney Fighter of the Year 1992. So yeah, I don't know whose idea, but I am looking forward to going to the presser. I don't know, Barack. I'm sure it's going to be crazy. I'm sure it's going to be a crazy scene, and I'm looking forward to seeing Tyson. You know, Barack's. I know you've met Tyson many times. I only met Mike Tyson once, and it was in Tampa, I believe. It was for the third Roy Jones Antonio Tarver fight. We were in the production truck, and all of a sudden Mike Tyson comes in the truck because Mike knew a lot of people at HBO. He was HBO, and he came in the truck. He said hi, shook his hand. I remember a couple things about Tyson. He looked very sad, but he was short, and he was like as wide as a house. And I'm not talking about fat, just a big dude. So that was the one and only time I met Mike Tyson. I don't remember the year, but it was for Tarver Jones 3. And I believe that fight was in Tampa. But he came to the trucks and he talked with some of the people there that he knew. Because like I said, he had a long he was with Tyson. He was with Tyson for a long time. I'm sorry, Tyson was with HBO for a long time. So 2005. Man, time flies. That's 19 years ago. But you know what? I'm looking at this Ring magazine, and I had no plans on even opening this up. May 1992, the pound for pound. I'll start from number 10. This is 1992, so 02, 12, 22. 33 years ago? Wait, 92? 02, 12. Yeah, 33 years ago. The pound for pound top 10. James Toney. Number 9, Terry Norris. Number 8, Buddy McGirt. Number 7, Orlando Canizales. Number 6, Jeff Fennick. Number 5, Mike Tyson. Number 4, Evander Holyfield. Number 3, Meldrick Taylor. Number 2, Pernell Whitaker. And number 1, Julio Cesar Chavez. And we all know what happened when Pernell fought Chavez. So 33 years ago, and it's the May edition. So 33 years ago, Julio Cesar Chavez was Ring Magazine's number 1 pound for pound. Number 1 pound for pound fighter. Did you ever see Henry Akinwande fight live? Not live in person, but I didn't see him fight live in person, but I saw him fight on HBO. I think he fought, I believe he fought Lennox Lewis on HBO. Tech Dumb in 1992. I was a junior in high school. Well, it just shows that I'm a few years older than you. So, but yeah, Barack, I'm looking forward to seeing you at the press conference, and that's the next. I'm going to watch that fight too, just like everyone else, especially since they're saying it's a real fight, which I'm surprised at, but I guess I shouldn't be surprised. But tomorrow. So tomorrow, Jessica McCaskill fights too. She fights Lauren Price, but Lomachenko, Kambosos is at 10 o'clock ESPN Plus, and I'm like everybody else. I think Lomachenko is going to be champ. HBO Boxing After Dark always produced some gems. HBO Boxing After Dark was, man. I mean, yeah, those were good times, and I'll tell you what. You see that right there? KO Nation. Does anyone know? Well, no, I can't do this. I can't give things away. KO Nation. Does anyone out there know what KO Nation is? You see, this is an HBO hat. KO Nation. Does anyone know Jim and Larry in Street Clothes. Ah, Jim and Larry didn't call those fights. They might have done one. It was a whole new announce team. It was a whole new announce team. It was I'm sure if you go on YouTube, which I'm about to do, HBO KO Nation. Oof. Yep. I remember the graphics, everything was new. So KO Nation was a hip hop. That's right. Fran Charles. Somebody said it. Johnny said it. Fran Charles was calling fights. And yes, Johnny, Johnny know. Shout out to you, Johnny. You know your stuff. I was at that fight. I worked that fight, Floyd and Emmanuel, the Drunken Master, on KO Nation. So I was a production assistant. I did graphics for all those fights. I don't know. It was they were what they were trying to do. They did show prospects, but they were trying to fuse hip hop and boxing, which was a great idea. The execution, because I hate to say this, but it was older white Jewish guys who were running the show and trying to, who knew nothing about hip hop. They did some things wrong. They probably, could have gotten some more relevant people to work those fights. It was a good idea. But there was a DJ there. I remember Eve and Gwen Stefani performed at one of the shows. So I worked every single one except one. And the one I didn't work was in some ritzy place in Miami. And I worked all the shows in Pittsburgh, and like it was dumps everywhere we went. It was a dump. But I did graphics on those shows. But one of my jobs, I don't remember the DJ's name, and I don't know why it was my job, because the PA, production assistant, you have to do everything. My job was to bring the records and I brought the record needles. And I remember I forgot them. It was like a big deal. I forgot the needles to one of the fights. So Kevin Kelly. Oh man. You think Paulie Malignaggi talks a lot. Kevin Kelly? And I like Kevin. I thought Kevin did a good job. I would have liked to see him keep calling fights. So shout out to Kevin Kelly, former featherweight champ from New York, Flushing, Queens. Kevin Kelly I liked him. But you can see it on YouTube because I just put in HBO KO Nation. And Floyd versus the Drunken Master. So it was HBO tried things, and it might not have worked. It didn't work long term, but they were willing to try things, and the production. Yeah, that's my point. I mean, look, they had Ed Lover was the ring announcer. And Ed Lover had a run, but at the time there were people more relevant in hip hop that they could have went after. But I can remember like the people at HBO meeting and like, yeah, we got this. We got Ed Lover. I'm thinking, man, like maybe 10 years before, if you had gotten Ed Lover, because I remember him, Yo MTV Raps, that would have been a big thing. But they tried. But shout out, look, I still rocking the hat. Still rocking the KO Nation hat. So still representing for HBO and KO Nation. But they were, when I look back at it now, like we did Paulie Spadafora fights in Pittsburgh, which was whoa. We went to Detroit. Maybe I wonder if that's where Floyd's fight with the Drunken Master was. I don't remember. Tech Dumb Dad, I hate fighting Kevin Kelly on Undisputed. He is awkward. All right, I got to get down on this Undisputed game because it's been a while since I played video games, and the only games I used to play were boxing games. So someone has to school me to Undisputed. Johnny, another flash from the past. USA Tuesday night fights with Sean O'Grady and Al Albert. Man, you know what was awesome about USA? They would have like the old timers fight, like Duran. and George Foreman. They had some great fights. They have a great library of fights. USA Today. Let me drop this link in if anybody wants to talk some boxing. All right, that's for me? Wait, no, I dropped that. That's all me. Hey, look at that picture. We took that. That was at, I forget what HBO. That was an HBO fight in Vegas. This picture right in the corner, and it was like a car show out there. And I don't know if that's a Lamborghini or what, but yeah, there were a lot of good times with HBO. And I didn't mean to get on a tangent about production and everything else, but this ain't even talking about fighters or announcers. I'm just talking about production, how you watch and see the fights, and it was much better back in the day than it is now. Again, if I'm paying money for a pay-per-view, don't show me ads in between rounds of the main event. I don't want to see an Audi ad. I want to hear the corners. They're just not doing enough. And Barack, I don't think you're there anymore. I'll talk to you Monday when I see you. Tell them to mic the trainers or get a better mic in the corner and let us hear some sound at home. Because again, that was the big thing. That was the big thing with HBO. That's what made HBO like so killer, because boxing was on every weekend on the networks, and of course they had to break almost every round to go to commercial because it was network TV, which there is no more network TV really. And HBO was revolutionary because they stayed that whole minute, so you could hear the corner. You know, they would show replays, but you could hear the corner. And they've gotten away from that. Like I said, I just watched Kevin Kelly versus Jermaine Taylor. Fight is 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 years old. And the sound quality, 2006 or 7 maybe, but the sound quality was awesome. Just the punches during the round. And that fight was in Atlantic City. And in between, being able to hear the corners and hear what the trainers are saying, it's like a lost art, but it shouldn't be. But it's because production people don't seem to care. Boxing Bully, I'll call fights with, yes, I saw you on the last one. I'll call fights with a new promotional company Overtime, and they mic the trainers. That, too, is essential to a good fight. It really is. And I have to see more of those shows, too, because I know you guys have a lot coming up. You have to mic them, and you have to let the people at home hear what the trainers are saying. You have to. Johnny, some of the most iconic moments took place in the corners. Dundee urging on Ray Leonard, Panama Lewis, and the Black Bottle. All the time. I mean, it's part of the fight. It's part of hearing what they're saying in the corners, how they're dealing with a cut, what they're saying to their fighters. Freddie Roach telling James Toney, who was it that he knocked down in the 12th round? Man, that was a great fight, too. It was a cruiserweight fight. Jirov. He knocked, I mean, yeah, corners are crucial to watching fights. And it's just, I don't know, man. Overtime does it. DAZN should do it. Everybody should do it. But I feel like it's just not done enough. I will give a shout out to Amazon. They keep the pace, they keep those fights coming, man. And again, it was a relatively early Canelo. I think it was 11:30 that the main event was in the ring. And it was even earlier than that for their first one, for Zoo Fundora. So just keep doing that. Just keep doing it. Hey, Barack, you see a link. You want to jump in, you can jump in. Or else I'll just see you on Monday. Yeah, it came to me. It came to me that it was Jirov. Yeah, but Freddie Roach telling him you got to knock him on his ass just feels more connected to what's happening during a fight when you hear the corners. Yeah, and I understand that you have paying customers at the arena. I get it. But you don't have to blast the music like that in between. You just don't. Why don't you want to put the corners on the screens in house and let the crowd hear that audio too. It's just like when they play replays in the arena. Again, I go back to that Taylor Pavlik one, and when they were showing the replays, the crowd was oohing and eyeing. Baby Joe Messi fought you up. Baby Joe, it's you bring up Baby Joe. Was it Syracuse? No, Buffalo. It was Buffalo. He was from Buffalo, and I remember when HBO was hyping him. That's when HBO was losing their mind because they were hyping him. No offense, but Buffalo, he was big up there. I remember going to Buffalo for a Baby Joe Messi show. Banana Bread, Teddy Atlas made a great speech to Povetkin that saved him against Shagayev. And Teddy also, who can forget Teddy with Michael Moore in the Holyfield fight where he beat him, urging him on. And a lot of people thought Teddy was acting, and some people were mad at Teddy because they said he was taking away from his fighter. But Teddy, if you know Teddy, if you've been around Teddy, that's how he is. He's passionate with that stuff. Who can ever forget the way he acted? And look that up on YouTube. The first Holyfield Moore fight where he sat down on the stool and he wouldn't let Moore sit down. And he told him he was going to cry tomorrow when he looked at the tape. And Moore ended up winning. And he also had great moments with Tim Bradley too. So yeah, Teddy Atlas is just a real dude, man. He's passionate. Boxing Bully, jump in. We'll love to hear you and George talk boxing. You know something? For a very short time, I was producing shows with Ak and Brock when they first started it at DAZN. I think they first started. Wasn't there long for a lot of reasons. I had a lot going on in my personal life. But working with them was awesome. And one of the best things was after the fight, they would do like a post-fight recap, and Barack and I would just talk, off camera, of course, just talk about the fights and everything else. Always, I loved working with those guys. I love seeing them do what they do. Norman Stone always made me laugh. Norman Stone, I remember isn't he the guy who got knocked out by what's Roy Jones's guy that used to be his guy in the corner? I think because he was with Johnny Ruiz, Norman Stone. And I believe before Roy fought Ruiz, they got into a fight. And I think Norman Stone got dropped. I can't believe I forgot Roy's his trainer's name. Man, it'll come to me. But yeah, that was my point with production. Yeah, I'm big on that. They certainly are making great fights. DAZN, I think DAZN is just it. They're going to price themselves out. It's too much. $30 a month, and they have pay-per-views, and they wonder why people get these pay-per-views for free. Do you really wonder? It's just it's greed and it's bad business decisions. But anyway, so I'm looking forward to the fight tomorrow, just because it's boxing. And then, as we've said, we've got the heavyweight fight next week. I can't wait for that. Although, someone tell me if I'm right. Won't one of the belts become vacant right after the fight? So will there really be an undisputed? I thought that I read somewhere that one of the belts is going to be vacated, but that's boxing. Boxing can rarely do the right thing. Tech Dumb Dad, I'm paying $20 a month for DAZN, and I get 20 off most pay-per-views for being a DAZN member. What do you mean most, though? Not all? It should be 20 off for every single pay-per-view. Yes. It's just different. It's just different. So you know what? While I have this May 1992 Ring magazine with James Toney on the cover, since we have a heavyweight unification next week between Fury and Usyk. Going to give you the top 10 heavyweights. It's for the period that ended. Let me tell you something. And Barack, you remember, this is May, May of 1992. Boxing magazines would come out. They would be 3 months behind. That's how the technology was. That's the lack of technology. So this is the May 1993. No, I'm sorry. May 1992 edition of Ring Magazine. The Ring ratings are for the period ending January 14th, 1992. February, March, April. So like 4 months behind. So let's go heavyweights. For May 1992, heavyweights. Here's your top 10. William Old School, salute to you, brother. So top 10 heavyweights, 1992. Number 10, Michael Moorer, who was unbeaten at 26-0. Number 9, Lennox Lewis, who had yet to become heavyweight champ. He was 18-0. Number 8, Tony Tucker. Number 7, former heavyweight champion Tim Witherspoon. Number 6, former and future heavyweight champion George Foreman. Again, this is the top 10 heavyweight division, January 1992. Number 5, Ray Mercer. Number 4, Razor Ruddock. Number 3, Riddick Bowe. Number 2, Mike Tyson. And number 1, the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, Evander Holyfield. So there you go. Evander Holyfield was the heavyweight champion of the world back in May of 1992. That was your top 10. Why am I bringing this up? Because I just happen to have this magazine on my desk. I've got a lot of boxing magazines. By the way, Jackie Callan was smoking. Jackie Callan, I still think she's a beautiful woman, but she was the manager of James Toney. So I've got a lot of these magazines. Used a lot of these magazines when I worked on Legendary Nights. I literally had like cratefuls that they used. That's quite the list. Yeah, a lot of big names on there. A lot of big names. Tech Dumb Dad, 2-time champ for Tim before he was done. Yeah, Tim Witherspoon does a lot of shows. I see him a lot. And Tim still sounds good. He still sounds good. Tim Witherspoon gave Larry Holmes one of the toughest fights of his career. Very close fight. A lot of people thought he won. But Tim Witherspoon was one of those guys who I mean, he got jumped. Look, what Don King did to him was criminal. But it's just a shame, man, because Tim Witherspoon could have gone way farther and become a lot more well-known than he did. But the business of the game, man, the business of the game got to him. Banana Bread. Akbarak Zeb Judah pulls up on an internet troll was hilarious. Now, that was a funny show that they used to do. Really funny show that they used to do. The pull-ups. Jackie is a legend. Yes, she is. Tim is a good dude, very personable. Yeah, Tim Witherspoon. I talked to him on one of these shows, and yes, Johnny, he admits that he did. He admitted that he did because of Don King, and it's a very sad story, but it's the business of boxing. The reason why I love the sport is because of the fighters. Because let me tell you, the business is dirty. In boxing, around boxing, people involved in boxing, like it's just dirty. There's dirty scumbags that work in boxing. Period. I've worked for a lot of scumbags. A lot. I've worked for a lot of great people too. So let me just preface that. But a lot of scumbags, and that's why they gravitate. The scumbags gravitate to scumbags. That's why a lot of them work. That's why a lot of them work in boxing. Johnny, how do you think Spoon would have done with Tyson during that time? I'm a big Tyson guy when he was younger, before he lost to Bone Crusher to Buster. I think that Tyson beats Tim Witherspoon. I think Witherspoon would have given him problems, but I think that Tyson beats Witherspoon. Afterwards, well, if Witherspoon, but that's the thing. If Witherspoon was in shape, would he be in shape, or would he be like when he fought Tony Tubbs? Remember that fight? You don't remember it. Why? Because it sucked. It was a horrible, horrible fight. And I think the title was vacant. I think Witherspoon might have popped for weed. I don't know, but that was a really that's when Tyson came in, cleaned out all those the Tony Tubbses of the world. He cleaned that out. The mobs ran boxing from the beginning until the new mob, aka promoters, came along. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, yeah, that was a bad. That was like the forgotten era of heavyweights. And Greg Page, and Greg Page is another one who could have been a great fighter. He's from Louisville. It's the same town as same city as Ali, and Greg Page never took it seriously. The fight would be over while they were talking about it happening soon. Yeah. Yeah. I'm people have debates all the time about Mike Tyson and Deontay Wilder, how they would have fared and this and that. Tyson was like two different careers. It was his career leading up to Buster, and then Buster after. That Tyson after Buster was never remotely the same. He was never remotely the same. And for all the people who say there was some kid some kid talking about Mike Tyson. You could tell he was a younger kid, so he had never seen Tyson fight back when he was fighting. He's on YouTube. He's one of these clowns looking at Box Rec on YouTube, and it makes them informed. And he was saying Mike Tyson was the most overrated heavyweight of all time. He said, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. He's the most overrated. Now, it's okay to be ignorant. And ignorant's not a bad word. You're ignorant because you just don't know what Mike Tyson was. You didn't see all of his fights back then, and that's okay. It's okay. Mike Tyson was 5'11", 5'10", 220. Everybody Tyson fought was bigger. You look at the young Mike Tyson when he was with Kevin Rooney. Mike Tyson rarely got hit. The combination of speed, power, and defense was amazing. I mean, he had he had everything. There were points when he fought Tony Tucker. Tony Tucker was 6'5". Mike Tyson was out jabbing Tony Tucker at points in that fight. A big 6'5", kind of almost like a modern day heavyweight. And that's what Mike Tyson did. So this notion that he's overrated, look, to me, after the Buster fight, it was never the same. It was never the same. He was never the same. But before that, the way he was taking these guys apart, I know he fought Larry Holmes when Larry Holmes was old. And Larry Holmes hadn't fought since the second Spinks fight. But Larry Holmes went on to fight like another, 10, 15 years? Nobody ever knocked him out except Mike Tyson. What happened to Michael Spinks? No one ever did that. Mike Tyson did it. Mike Tyson was almost, people forget how good he was. He still had the power after Douglas, but what he had that made him special was gone. Daniel Moretti, I wish Bone Crusher tried to win the fight against Tyson from the get-go. It looked like he was just trying to survive. Oh, man. That fight was horrible. Bone Crusher opened up the last 30 seconds of the fight. And I don't remember the fight after that HBO did, because I watch them every now and then. But who did he fight? Was it Tucker? I don't know. I'm too lazy to pull his record up. But the fight after Bone Crusher Smith, remember that Dave? This is going back to the 80s. David Bowie, Let's Dance. Let's dance. Put on your red shoes and dance. Remember that song? So they did a clip talking about that fight, like a recap, and that's the music they played. Let's Dance, and it was just clip after clip of Tyson and Bone Crusher, just Bone Crusher trying to crush his bones. That's what he was doing in that fight. He was trying to crush his bones. That was a horrible performance. Horrible, horrible performance by Bone Crusher. I bought those magazines and went straight to the rankings. Yeah, Barack, I still have all the magazines, and I pull them out every once in a while because a lot of them, I mean, the articles, the writing was amazing. By the way, Meldrick Taylor. I'm gonna go over the champions real quick before I get out of here. But do you still have those magazines? Because mine are in the garage, and my wife is cool with me keeping them. William Old School, George, me and you both know that the fighters today no way compared to the old school fighters. I wouldn't go that far. I mean, there's Bud Crawford and the Monster. Those guys would compete with anybody. So, but but listen to what I was just saying. I was just talking about back in the old days, in the 80s, and the crop of heavyweights was subpar. It was a bunch of fighters who had talent, who were fat, lazy, and out of shape. So you gotta, like, when you talk about old school, like, remember, it wasn't all rosy. Because back then, people were saying, oh, there's not a heavyweight champion like Ali or Joe Louis. So every era thinks their era was the best. But old school, this is our era now. I mean, there's great fighters. There are great fighters. Boots Ennis, who I hope turns into a great fighter. So I tempered that a little bit. Tech Dumb Dad, Tommy Morrison was from my home state. I was about 8 years younger, but he was being talked about when I was a kid, and that potential never realized. But that left hook, though, woo, the Duke, yeah, man, he could punch. He could punch, and he had a great story. It wasn't true. Were they saying that the Duke, the actor, I forget his name, was his grandfather or his uncle or something? But he could punch. Man, he could punch. And he was in Rocky 5, which, sorry, rest in peace, Tommy. Tommy Gunn. If you remember the Rocky movies, Tommy Gunn, Rocky 5 was the worst. Was the worst of the Rocky movies. Johnny, Tyson's demolition of Holmes aged well because Holmes went the distance with Holyfield and beat Ray Mercer. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And Tyson is the only one, and we all knew that Holmes could be dropped, but damn, he had a hell of a chin. What do we have here? Solar Triangle. Hello, sorry for bothering you. I wanted to offer promotion of your channel. Viewers, followers, views, chatbots. The price is lower. So there you go. Go to Streamrise, everyone. So there, see, you got to hustle, getting their hustle on. I don't know what Streamrise is, but there you go. Someone saying to go there. Banana Bread, I know Don is most famous for his scumbaggery, but is he actually the worst by a mile? No. Or are there plenty of unnamed others behind the scenes who are just as bad, if not worse? Promoters, you don't even have to name the names. They were notorious for robbing fighters. Managers, same thing. Managers were taking like a third, I believe. A third. So, yeah. Boxing bully, a few? Come on, man. I got to take you to my garage. Because I definitely have more than a few. Tech done. Oh, hey, Tech, I thought you were going to come in here. I am going to jump off soon. I got to go pick up my daughter. They're having some fair. And it's cold out and rainy, but I would have gone out too when I'm 15, 16. Tech done dad. Kambosos leans over his lead foot too much, especially when throwing the jab, and he keeps his opposite hand way below his jaw when he throws a jab. I've seen that. Loma will see that early and make him pay. Yeah, I think Loma, your mic won't work, huh? I have all the Rocky movies except for Rocky 5. You're right. It's a terrible movie. It's so bad. I remember seeing it in the movies, and when I left, I was depressed for like a good 2 hours. Like a good 2 hours, I was sad. Rocky 4. A lot of people say Rocky 4. Mine is Rocky 3, man. Like Rocky 3 would okay. Now this we can have a debate about, but it's it's kind of an old school debate. Rocky 3, think about this. You had Hulk Hogan in that. You had Mr. T playing Clubber Lang in that. And you had the best storyline. You had Apollo Creed coming back to train Rocky, switches up his style. They become friends. Yeah, Rocky 3 is my favorite. Rocky 4, Stallone did a director's cut that I thought was interesting. Some things I liked, some things I didn't. I'm glad he took out the whole robot thing. I hated that stupid robot with Paulie. But I hear he's doing a director's cut for Rocky Balboa. Now, Rocky Balboa was a lot better than I thought it would be. Yeah, Johnny, I hear you. The soundtrack for Rocky 4, yes. Hearts on fire. Yes. Yes. The soundtrack for Rocky 4. Yeah. But yeah, see, Rocky 5, man, it made me depressed. But Rocky Balboa was better than I thought it would be. A lot better than I thought it would be. I remember I went to see it with my boy, and we went to one theater, and it was sold out. We had to go to another one, get to another theater, and it's packed, and people are chanting Rocky before there's no easy way out. There's no shortcuts. Man, there were some good songs on that. But Rocky 3, though, Eye of the Tiger, that was the cut right there. Eye of the Tiger. So Rocky 3 is my favorite, but I can see why people like Rocky 4. I like Rocky Balboa a lot. I really, really, really like that movie. By the way, I would love to interview Tarver because I heard that Antonio Tarver, who Mason the Line Dixon, he was a heavyweight champion. And by the way, Sylvester Stallone was in better shape than Antonio Tarver. I'd love to talk to Tarver because I heard he was rough on the set. And you don't know if things are true because I've also heard that Stallone on set, you couldn't look him, or that was on set for The Contender, maybe. You weren't allowed to look him in his eyes or speak to him. That's supposedly what was said, but Tarver, I heard, was tough to deal with on the set of Rocky Balboa. Duran was in the second Rocky movie. I know that. You know that. I don't know if most people know that. He was the sparring partner that made Sylvester Stallone look silly. And that shows you Stallone, his character Rocky Balboa, was 190-pound heavyweight. And Duran was almost as big as Stallone. And Duran at the time was a what year was that? The second one, 79. He had left lightweight, so he was a welterweight. He was a welterweight at the time. So, man, I feel like I'm getting a cold. But, see, this is the kind of boxing talk I prefer. I don't want to talk about Canelo. I don't want to talk about Ryan Garcia. I do want to talk about Lomachenko. We talked about Lomachenko, and we talked some boxing history about some great events that happened around this time. Not this day, but around this time, because you got to respect boxing. I love the sport now. I'm going to love the sport tomorrow, and I also love the past of the sport. I love talking to the fighters that I grew up with. And, there's one guy. Let me get to William Old School. I remember when Rocky 1 came out, and I watched people shadow boxing in the movie Walkways before and after the movie. I was too young. I didn't see it. Yeah, this is barbershop talk. I didn't see it in the movies. I was too young. But when I did see it, man, I was just going to say something else, but I got thrown off. But my point is, I don't want to talk about that Ryan Garcia had 1/60th of the permissible amount of whatever he had in his piss. Because look, I'll say that I said this before. Ryan Garcia now is guilty. He has to be proven innocent. Ryan Garcia has popped dirty. He's guilty. He has to be proven innocent. We'll see what happens with the B sample. My guess is that the B sample is going to come back dirty too. And then boxing will do what it does, and they'll suspend him for a year, which really he fights once a year anyway. So it'll only make him bigger. You know, you get away. See, that's why I don't want to. A lot of people talked about this all week, and they talked about Canelo. And man, I don't know how they do it. Nestor Gibbs, I had to reach out to Nestor. I reached out to Nestor to interview him. I just want to interview him. I don't even want to talk boxing. We will. But I want to interview him because I think he's from Jersey like me. And I don't know anything about his past, about just his love for boxing. Those guys, him and Johnny, they grind on that show. I mean, they're doing like 5-6 hours on their first show, and they do 2 shows. They might be on right now with thousands of people watching them. So shout out to them. Shout out to the Boxing Voice. Johnny, what did Berlanga get for the ear bite? Yeah, I don't even remember. I don't even remember. But yeah, shout out to the Boxing Boys. I've done a couple of shows with them. I did one remote. I was here and I did a whole show with Nestor. And then I was in the studio. They used to be in a different studio in Vegas. And I was with them for a show. And man, they got some passionate folks that call in. So shout out to those guys. But since I have this pristine Ring magazine, James Toney on the cover from May of 92, I do want to, I gave the top 10. So I just want to go over some of the divisions, who the champions were. This is May of 1992. So, junior lightweight champ, Jeff Fennick. Lightweight champion, Pernell Whitaker. The junior welterweight champion, Julio Cesar Chavez. The welterweight champion, May 1992, Meldrick Taylor. The junior middleweight champion, Terry Norris. The middleweight champion, James Toney. Super middleweight, wow. The number 1 rated super middleweight, Victor Cordoba, who was a WBA champ. Light heavyweight, Thomas the Hitman Hearns. Cruiser heavyweight, Jeff Lampkin. And heavyweight champion was Evander Real Deal Holyfield. Man, that's crazy. That's 32 years ago. That's crazy. That's 32 years ago. So we got to celebrate some history. What's today? So on Sunday, it'll be 23 years since Trinidad knocked out Joppy and MSG, and I was there for that fight. Again, that atmosphere, it felt like I was in Puerto Rico, and you could feel the love that the people had for Trinidad, and he gave the love right back. So, yeah, you know, we just got to celebrate some old fights. Nobody jumped in. Man, I put this link up here like 4 times, but I'm getting off now. I did an hour and a half, and it felt like nothing. I hadn't done a live all week. So I might go live after the fight tomorrow, but everyone does that. So look, as long as if I get 2 people on, it's a success. So make sure you like, subscribe, hit that like button. It helps with the visibility of the show. And Johnny, maybe next time, yes, you will jump in. You have to jump in. You got to jump in, Johnny. You have to next time. But I'm at 7,900 and some odd subscribers, so I'm almost hitting 8,000 subscribers. So listen, you guys dictate where the show goes, what we talk about. I'm lucky enough that I've literally got to travel the world talking about fighters and telling their stories, and I'm still doing it. And my next travels will be right down the road, Monday, going to Harlem, the Apollo Theater, shooting the press conference. Well, I'm not shooting it. I'm going to be there for the press conference between Jake Paul and Mike Tyson. So that should be interesting. I'm looking forward to that. Looking forward to the fights tomorrow, 10 o'clock. Maybe I won't go live because that's probably going to be late. But who cares? Everyone's jacked up after a fight anyway. So nobody's tired. Nobody's tired. So tomorrow night, make sure you check out ESPN. My man Tim Bradley, along with Joe Tessitore and Mark Kriegel. ESPN, they do care about their production. They do care about their production. But I don't. That's a look. We already did that talk. Make sure you check out the fights. Again, like, subscribe. All right. We'll talk some more boxing soon.